So this is Moonfarmer's deck, which doesn't appear to have a sideboard, but maybe there's one somewhere. This is a Kalios mech combo deck, and it looks like a beast. I'm pretty excited about this. This is definitely not a budget deck. Like, this person probably crafted silver, like we were talking. So this is definitely like a deck that costs a little more than some of the other options in the tournament, but looks really spicy. It's probably going to be a lot of fun to watch. So, from the top, we have Scroll Bandit, very solid 2-drop, Battle Pando, Lantern Fox, and Mind Cage Oni as Moon's selection of the very large number of amazing Songhai 3-drops available. This is a pretty standard setup, like 2 Pando, 2 Fox, 3 Oni is probably the most common way to do this. We have 3 copies of Deceptibot, which can pull out your silver, I guess. 2 copies of Thunderhorn, 2 copies of Eternity Painter, 2 copies of Grandmaster Zendo, and 2 silvers. So, why? Right? Why all this clunky stuff? So the main combo piece is Assassination Protocol. This, I haven't seen it, for those who haven't seen it, Assassination Protocol is a 1-mana spell that reactivates a friendly minion, and it can't attack or damage generals this turn. So, you can use it with Thunderhorn to make a big AoE, you can use it with Deceptibot to guaranteed pull a silver out of your deck, and just, whoops, a 7/5 appeared, and you killed something. And it also goes pretty well with Fox, Pando, and sometimes Scroll Bandit. To support all that, we have a nice little selection of removal spells. We have a single Juxtaposition, which is good with Bandit. And not much else, I guess. No, I lie. It's pretty good with Thunderhorn. We have 3 Phoenix Flyers. No surprises there. We have 2 Onyx Bearseal and 3 Bamboozle, which is a lovely little combo. And this also forms the deck's draw engine, I would guess, because I don't see any other draw except Mind Cage Oni. I guess Bandit, but it's pretty unreliable. There's 3 copies of Killing Edge, which goes with Bandit being a backstab unit primarily, and it lets Deceptibot and Thunderhorn kill bigger things. 2 Thunderbomb, which is a nice little AoE, and 1 copy of Spiral Technique as a finisher, which is a nice little setup. Like, the curve on this is very heavy on the 3s. We have a lot of 3-mana cards. There's 7 3-mana minions and 10 3-mana spells. It's like a third of the deck is 3-drops, which I would say is probably too much. And there's a definite lack of 2-drops or healing. So aggro is going to be pretty good against this. On the flip side, if you draw your Assassination Protocols, you can wreck an aggro deck's day once you get to 5 mana with Thunderhorn Protocol or Deceptibot Protocol and get them kills. And for anything too big to kill that way, there's Eternity Painter. I don't know why silver is the mech of choice. I guess just because it's the biggest. Like, its ability doesn't do anything. In that there aren't any mechs that have keywords in the deck. But it does mean you just deterministically pull out a 7/5. Kolossus says, I think I had a lot of misplays in this game. That's alright. Everyone does that. And, like, especially if you've not seen this deck before, it's going to be very difficult to play against it. Apropos of nothing. The other thing with this deck, that is a pretty common critique I have of Kalios decks, is why is it a Kalios deck? Now, playing Deceptibot and Thunderhorn out of reach is good. Like, being able to play them in safe spots and then teleport them in is good. Maybe that's enough to make it worth not playing Reva. But Reva is so good that you need a very strong reason to play Kalios. Even though Blink is quite a strong ability. Once you're top decking or against opponents that have low removal or are trying to play conservatively, Reva's Bloodborne spell is such an insane long game threat. I think a lot of the time you'll play your Deceptibot or Thunderhorn out of the way and they'll just kill it anyway. Like, they'll have a removal spell or they'll move it, they'll dispel it, making it worse. You're mostly looking for Assassination Protocol to fill that gap, whereas Reva's BBS actually absorbs removal and protects your later units by forcing your opponent to respect the Heartseekers, and gives you an amazing Killing Edge target, which makes it less awkward to play 3 copies of Killing Edge in a deck with a bunch of expensive minions and removal spells. And otherwise lightweight synergy with it. So I think I would at least test this as a River deck. I would consider it. The other nice thing about River is that it lets you play Cryptographer, which is a really good 2-drop for her. That can fill a hole in the curve. I'd probably look to cut some of the removal, I guess. Not sure which. I would have to test the deck to find out. But I do like this. This is very spicy, and there's a lot of powerful things you can do in the mid-game with Assassination Protocol. But I think without Protocol, it's going to be... The rest of the deck's a bit incoherent. It's like, here's some good cards and some removal spells. Which is not really a Songhai thing to do. Like, it can work. But, you know, there's... I mean, a lot of the popular Songhai decks now play almost no minions at all. And the reason being that, like, it's often better just to kill stuff and then blow your opponent up once they've taken a bit of damage and you've got enough mana. It's a bit harder to pull off against Saurian Finality, but, you know, so is a lot of this stuff, right? Like, the Assassination Protocol combos rely heavily on your opponent having minions in play to do stuff to. You know, and that's normal. I play decks with lots of removal in. And in this particular matchup, there'll be plenty of minions on both sides, so it won't matter. But something worth bearing in mind. Nevertheless, I'm to some extent nitpicking. This deck looks really fun, and it's got a lot of very powerful stuff that it can do to just get people. So I'm looking forward to seeing how it plays out. On the other side of things, we have Kolossus' Siphoron again. We went over this earlier, but just to give it a quick rehash, this is a... well, Kolossus calls it a control deck. I would probably describe this personally as more of a mid-range deck. But there's definitely some control elements in here. There's a lot of strong creature interaction. Instead of sacrificing the early game like control decks often do, there's a Golem package, which is great because you can play Dream Shaper to make up for the fact that you played and drew 2-drops. Filling your hand up with removal spells, more gas, more draw. And your late game bombs, Imara Healer, and Grapnel Paradigm. And there's a nice package of interaction throughout. We've got Blood Tears, Blood of Air, Superior Mirage, Wildfire Rank, Equality Constraint, and Psychic Conduit can handle a variety of different situations, as well as Eoldi, Stalwarts, Falkis, and Imara. The one thing I really like about this deck, though, is actually the sideboard. I think Kolossus has the most balanced and considered sideboard, I think, of the players we've seen. And again, that's not to put anyone else down. Building sideboards is very difficult. I really like this one. I think it's got a nice variety of tools for a variety of matchups and opponents. And covers for the things that the main deck specifically doesn't do. Like, there's already healing in the main deck. So the anti-aggro tool in the sideboard is Bone Swarm. I think that's very clever. So this is pretty close to ideal. We're lucky enough to pull a 2-drop. There's only 3 of these in the whole deck, so hitting one on the play is pretty fortunate. And we've got a curve of 2, 3, 4. We want to dig for Assassination Protocol to go with this. I guess Juxtaposition, potentially, to go with this. Although we can try and Blood Bolt spell it into position and on turn 3, potentially. This works basically by itself. I'd like to see Mist Dragon Sail in this deck, actually, over the Jux. And potentially more than one of them. So I think I would replace the duplicate Scroll Bandit, because they get a lot worse when you just run them out without spells after turn 1. And the Zendo, just because it's expensive, and there's a lot of expensive stuff in this deck. See how the synchronization lines up. Yep, we've got the mulligan I expected. So Colossus's hand is very nice. I'm a fan of this. Metallurgist, Dream Shaper, and excuse me, and First Wish makes for a very compelling opening. Although I don't really like this positioning. I mean, there's not much the Bandit can do to get behind the Dream Shaper, but I think I'd have put it here anyway. Moon jamming up to Thunderhorn? Yeah, I don't hate that. I think the Deceptibot might be a better option out of hand. Like, the Thunderhorn is going to be very powerful when you can, like, surprise your opponent with it with Protocol. And we have a duplicate Deceptibot, so if the bot dies, we'd still have the option of Thunderhorn or Deceptibot with the buff. With the Protocol. This is a nice kill from Kolossus here. And Colossus's hand is still reasonably stacked. With a bunch of golems. Now drawing up to 6, that is gross. Blood of Air into Sirocco is going to be a very, very strong sequence in this game. It's going to be pretty hard for Moon to win this. Especially with the Thunderhorn gone. Like, I think Moon needed that. So next turn they can Deceptibot Protocol. I guess here... Is there ever a Pando Protocol line? Like, you can kill most of it. Yeah, they're doing that. You attack the 2-3 and it kills most of Colossus's stuff. Although I think I would have moved here in order to attack the 3-2. That's quite bold. I think I would have put this elsewhere. Like, there's a juxtaposition in play. You could even jux these and attack the... Oh, they're doing it. Oh, no, that doesn't work now. Because they moved first. Okay, yeah, I think Moon just, like, mis-executed that turn. I think they meant to, like, swap these and then move and attack, but they moved first and they were like, oh, damn. I messed it up. What's Colossus got here? The Blood of Air is not looking that exciting. Just because it's hitting some low-value targets. I think Wildfire Ankh is looking good here. Potentially. I like this line too. Killing that and then using the constraint on the Falcius. Oh no, the Falcius is friendly. What am I talking about? Playing an Obelisk. I don't know if I like this Obelisk positioning. I think I would have put it here. It forces your opponent away from you, but that's a good thing. And it's protected from backstabs. Most Kalios players have Katara and things like that in their deck, so it's reasonable to expect the opponent might have backstabs. Oh, this is nice. Oh wait, there's no synergy with it. Awkward. I mean, so if Colossus can't remove the Deceptibot here, this is great, but obviously the Blood of Air is slammed down to deal with that. I might have actually considered playing the Metallurgist over the Obelisk just to make Sirocco stronger. So Moon's in a bit of an awkward spot now. They can... Yeah, Onyx Bearseal, Bamboozle, just a draw. Awkward that they can't get the juxtaposition out of hand first. And Colossus' hand looking pretty stacked here with the Sirocco kind of whenever ready and a bunch of Falciuses in the meantime. Yeah, Metallurgist and Sirocco makes sense. These are pretty bad spawns, but it doesn't matter very much. Like, Moon is now forced in this direction because the 3-2s are presenting lethal. But at least they have a lot of options this turn. Sadly, no Protocol, because a Thunderhorn... Like, Thunderhorn here, Jux Protocol would be amazing. You attack this and you hit all of these. Second answer for the giveaway. I'm not sure this is doing anything. Just body blocking, I suppose. It's out of reach of these. The 3-2 here trading is kind of awkward. But I guess I'm not sure there's much else you can do. Oh man. For the punish. Top decked as well. And this is looking a little bit like game, isn't it? Oh yeah, there's the Falcius. Actual lethal. It's really hard to keep track of what the other player has in hand. I keep losing track of what they're holding. It's much easier to do it the sort of solipsistic way of having just one player. We'll start with Moons. Our Moon doesn't have a sideboard, at least one listed. What sort of things would you put in the sideboard of this? Like healing, maybe Ghost Lightning, which wouldn't come in here. Do you ever play something like Heaven's Eclipse? Probably not. Maybe you go for Metal Tooth for jank, but I don't think that's worth it. I don't know what I'd even want in this matchup. Like, it's a bit awkward that you're playing a deck like this against an opponent playing lots of small to medium-sized things that you can't really deal with without exactly Thunderhorn Protocol and Blood of Air to kill the big things. I guess Eternity Paint is pretty good as well. So we just need to make sure we don't die up to that point. Maybe Deathstrike Seal could be good in the sideboard to play with Battle Pando and something like Gotatsu to enable it. Moving over to Colossus. We didn't really see a lot of calls for most of this. I think Lightbender might be okay as an option. It just helps you get rid of Thunderhorn or at least neuter it strongly. It answers Killing Edge. We didn't see that, but Killing Edge is pretty common in any backstab-ish list, and backstab-ish lists are very common to be the ones playing Kalios. So I guess that's fine. Blind Scorch is also pretty good against both the 4/5s, which rely on dealing damage to do anything. So if Moon plays one without a protocol, Blind Scorch trade or just Blind Scorch and ignore it for a turn is very powerful. I don't know if Noshrak is necessary, but he's a good option, but I don't think there's a massive need for him. And what would I cut? Like, maybe Wildfire Ank? Because Moon has a lot of big stuff that the Ank is not so exciting against. Possibly Mirage. It's not so good against non-rush minions. That's kind of it, really. Everything else looks pretty solid here. One important thing to remember, this is going to sound like weird and obvious, but one important thing to remember when playing jank decks is that often they look a bit weird, and it's easy to say, oh, I lost because I was playing memes rather than playing tier decks, but often weird decks like this are just more difficult to play, and not necessarily less powerful. There's a lot of very powerful things you can do in Duelyst, and even if it might not necessarily have a good matchup against the tier 1 deck of the field, or like the thing everybody else is playing, or whatever, your jank deck might still have potential if you pilot it correctly. And I think Moon's deck is actually pretty complex, both to play with and against. Something, I think, with a little bit of tuning, this list could be quite strong in certain matters. Like if there's a lot of minions around, smallish minions, this deck would prey on them very hard. So against any sort of swarm deck, maybe a little tempo decks or aggro decks, you can pretty much crush them with like what you could call Assassination Protocol mid-range, I guess, by blowing up the world with Thunderhorn or spamming out big mechs. Like, can you imagine Deceptibot double protocol on 6? Like maybe taking a mana tile or something that you've left up and just like wrecking some poor Swarm player's day. Hey Rockham, thanks for joining. We've been up for about 2.5 hours now. When did you start streaming? I started streaming at 4, so yeah, 2.5 hours ago. It'll be on YouTube or the Twitch VOD. If you look up slightly, there's a giveaway for a couple orbs that you might want to submit a solution to. So, let's get started with this match. Oh, actually, let's discuss Moon's hand first. This is a good hand. This deck really wants to go second. Like, look how many options Moon has. They can play any of the 3, like, best Songhai 3-drops. Full stop, basically, like, in terms of raw card quality. I don't have a bot, sorry, Rock, and I'll just copy it for you. Anyone who posts a correct answer gets entered randomly. It's just pretty similar to the normal giveaways where you type a thing, but there's a puzzle element. So So we don't need all these 3-drops. The main thing we need to do is pick one and probably a backup one. I think we're replacing this Zendo because, again, the deck has a lot of high-cost cards. Holding on to them when they're mostly just kind of generically good. Like, Zendo isn't key to this matchup. He's just powerful. So holding on to them is going to backfire. So I want to replace the Zendo, and I want to replace one of these. The Pando is probably the best at getting tempo. The Fox, I mean, Vitruvia don't really have great answers to Fox, but it's insanely vulnerable to Psychic Conduit. Like, if the Pando gets conduited, that's pretty bad. If this gets conduited, it's awful. Like, Conduit Blood Tear or something could be, like, GG. So, the Fox is probably the replace, even though its upside is very high. The Oni is okay. I mean, maybe there's not that much for it to actually steal here. Although stealing a Scion's First Wish is very good. If your opponent plays one of those, being able to take back the tempo slightly by playing one of your own is nice. But I think, unless the opponent plays something that's really good to First Wish, on the first turn, I think I want to play the Pando, and I want to play it aggressively, so that it can start fighting back against the horde of golems that are sure to occupy the board very soon. So I'd probably replace this and this on Reflection. This is vulnerable, but I think the Oni is like, you have to play it a distance away for it to do much, whereas you want to be trading and trying to clear the board, keep the golems away. Unless you find Assassination Protocol, in which case Thunderhorn does all the work. But we don't have it, so I think we have to hedge in favour of needing to fight. Need something slightly more specific than the general surviving or dying. Like, what's the end result of the interaction? So let's push the go button. Hopefully these will sync up. Yeah, so seeing the Zendo replace is unsurprising. Moon is kind of leaning on picking randomly. Don't replace the Thunderhorn. Please don't replace Thunderhorn, you need that. Just the Zendo. That's pretty understandable. We see Kolossus has a pretty solid hand. Gets a Metallurgist down. Draws a Celebrant. I'm a fan. Yeah, this is looking pretty solid for Kolossus. The Falcius is going to be particularly good against this Battle Pando. I think I would have just taken the Mana Tile there. Like, you don't have anything to make use of another Mana Tile. If you draw Assassination Protocol, you can play Thunderhorn on a tile and then use it to attack. Whereas this way, you're letting your opponent do this, which is pretty awkward. The Falcius is like, it's not that bad because all of this stuff now still dies when Moon hits it. Except for there's your First Wish. Look at this misplay now. That's fine. I don't think that's a particular misplay. Like, nothing wrong with that. Unless I missed something in your hand in particular. That seems fine by me. I would not make this play as Moon. I realize it's got to be tempting because you need to do something, but like, this is just going to die. So what's the best answer here for Kolossus? Probably just move this down one, trade, and then maybe trade with Sephiron. They don't even need to trade, actually. They can shrink it to 2 power, attack, and then develop. Well, I guess there's not much to develop. Could use the Psychic Conduit, I suppose. Save 2 damage on the face. It's not enormously worth it. That's kind of awkward Celebrant positioning because it forces Sephiron to move here. Oh, they're stealing it. This is reasonable. I don't know if this is worth it. But Moonfarmer doesn't have great targets for the Conduit. The main downside is honestly that you put your Bloodborne spell on cooldown. And like, in Duelyst, it's very rarely worth it to use up cards because you can. Because if they're bad otherwise, you can just replace them. So I think the Conduit there was probably too keen. This is not great for Moon. This looks like a player struggling. to find stuff to do. That's a good draw, though. That actually does stuff. So it's actually a really interesting matchup. Colossus can steal a majority of Moon's minions. I don't know. They can steal the cheap ones, but that's a big draw for Colossus there. It's Blood of Air and Conduit. Blood of Air is also a big draw. The constraint is nice here because it lets us get rid of the Scroll Bandit, but the Bandit's not really doing much. I guess it can get blinked into the backline. It's a bit awkward because Colossus really wants... Yeah, you can... What you do is... Can you attack it with this? No, this is... Has the Celebrant moved yet? Oh, that still doesn't kill it, does it? It's a bit awkward because what you want to do is hit this and then steal it with the Conduit and move it down here. But that doesn't actually... You can't actually do that because you're body blocked in. So I guess the next best thing is just to plow it into Moon's face. Seems okay. So Moon can actually use the Scroll Bandit now for the first time. Don't do that, you need to blink the Scroll Bandit, right? I guess you can Sentinel plus Lantern Fox, but I don't particularly like this. I also don't like the damage trade there. I mean, although Sifron's now surrounded, he still has 18 HP, and that makes it very difficult for Moon to really, like, capitalize on just surrounding him with small units. There's the Blood of Air. And this is probably basically game, although Colossus is pretty low on cards in hand, so Moon can definitely, like, take this game back, but it's going to be a little difficult. If there's a... I'd probably replace the Juxtaposition. Drawing Silver instead of the Protocol is a bit awkward. I mean, the Silver is a fine card to play, but it just dies to all these crap golems. And Colossus' hand is looking fantastic as well. They won't be able to Dream Shape and Amara, but they can Dream Shape a Falcius and play something else. And just keep the gravy train going. It's going to be hard for Moon to deal with all these large units. Sorry, it's going to be hard for Moon to deal with all these numerous units without good AoE. A Thunder Bomb would have been a good draw there, I guess, actually. Oh, that's so awkward. So yeah, I see the Falcius here, I guess, yep. Trade, and then probably go face with these two. I don't know if it's worth it. I think you may as well. It sets up lethal very nicely. And an Obelisk, also a good draw. That's slightly awkward positioning. I think I'd prefer to put it here. As it is, if Moon plays 2 units, they can actually block the Obelisk from attacking stuff. You missed lethal. Oh, yeah. Yeah, you did. I didn't notice it either. I was busy tracking. Slight misplaying positioning. Yeah, I think so. I think I'd like to see this here, but it doesn't make that much difference. Moon's deck is high curved enough that it's difficult for them to block both of these anyway. And if Moon stays where they are in order to prevent the Dervish from coming out, they're going to be surrounded by minions anyway. Yeah, Falcius in the face would have gotten there, but oh well. So that wraps that matchup. It's a shame to see Moon's deck didn't really come together, because it was very interesting. I think it relies a lot on Assassination Protocol, and I would, if I had to guess, and again, I'm putting words in a player's mouth here, but if I had to guess, I would say that it relies on Assassination Protocol probably more than Moon themselves actually realized. In that, like, in Game 1, Moon had the option to make an Assassination Protocol play with the Thunderhorn in a turn or two down the line, but instead played it out on curve where it got killed. I think we've seen quite a few players make that sort of mistake where they've just kind of, well, I should probably play something, right? And they've jammed out their swarm opening or their good unit, and just let the opponent make their trades. Thunderhorn is not that powerful when your opponent is dictating how they can attack it. There are very rarely situations where your opponent doesn't have the ability to spread out so that the Thunderhorn doesn't get value. It happens, but it's rare. your opponent has the flexibility of moving before they attack. So Thunderhorn is at its best when you're reactivating it, or putting it next to battle pets, and things like that, like tricksy things that make your opponent feel awful because they, got wrecked by a Thunderhorn that they couldn't play around. And that's where Thunderhorn is at its most powerful.